Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. My key light is not coming on, so I'll fix that in a second. You know what else? We need the music. Oh my gosh, this is not a good start to the week, is it? It's okay. We'll get past this struggle. There we go. All right, to the charts. Got some rollovers first. So it is full spring now, and it kind of looks like the winds of change are coming. It's still like a relatively light news week, but there's a couple of things that we're seeing in some of the analyst reports about flows and stuff that suggest that we could get some significant changes this morning. So just in ZN, it looks like we're having a little bit of upside, racing that downside that we had on Friday. S&P 500 having a little bit of downside in the overnight session, but recovering it pretty easily here. Oh, why did I do that? Wrong button. Oil here just kind of down at its well, they've retraced half of that spike. Gold and silver, I mean, it's okay, but a little down and then back up, right? And Kappa is selling off, so I have a little bit of concerns there about that. That's interesting that copper is the one that most clearly appears to be selling. Bitcoin not doing so hot. And you know what's interesting about Bitcoin is that the dollar hasn't been doing too great either. Well, having it been at 101.7, we are now to 101.3. And I have to say, on the dollar, I have not heard, man, it's like when it's time to go short the dollar, it's just like everybody's talking about it, right? There's so many people out there talking about the dollar's gonna get weaker, yada yada, which to me is like, well, no duh, it was abnormally strong. So yeah, so we could normalize back to a typical range in the US dollar, and that would probably be a good thing for the markets overall, right? But everybody's pessimistic about everything, and then they're pessimistic about the dollar too. That makes sense? Like usually the correlation that you get with the dollar is that the dollar gets weaker and the S&P 500 goes up. But everybody is bearish the S&P 500 and bearish the dollar. So are we going to see a different correlation in the market than usual, or are people getting ahead of themselves? And like, here's the thing, flows that I've seen, like analyst reports and so forth that I've been reading kind of suggest that it's like sell all the things, that the treasuries are going to be short, that the equities are going to be short. But we'll see. Okay, so let's fix this light. Oh, you know what? I like reset it, but it didn't turn on. The button was to off, so that might be what's hurting me here. There we go. There we go. Uzi, you got new monitors and you're wasting them by making me really big on them? Come on. No, wait, how big of a monitor did you get? four 27-inch monitors. Wow. I honestly, having had this set up for quite some time now, I just can't imagine using a computer before having a 27-inch monitor. So like a 27-inch monitor doesn't feel like your entire vision, but it does feel like the entire part of your vision that can see detailed things. So like 27-inch seems to be the perfect size. And you want to be, I'm actually a little bit too close. I should probably be more like this. Should probably be more like this. If you put your hand out in front of you, sit up straight, put your hand out in front of you, you should touch the screen. That's how you know you're the right amount away from the monitor. I should probably be a little bit further back. I couldn't think of more trading stuff to add beyond my DOMs. Yeah, there's been some times where I've said like, oh, we should put up it would be nice to have a fourth screen, but really not. The real issue I have is getting everything that I would like new people coming in to see the stream, fitting everything that I want them to see all on one screen. I find difficult, and then people are like, oh, you should add this other thing, and you should add this indicator and that indicator. Well, so in the treasuries, getting to the markets here, I was expecting maybe more selling this week, but the initial move that they had off of the open was a buy. So I don't see too strong of a flow coming in per se. In fact, if anything, the flows do appear to be selling overall for the session. So I'm a little suspicious of that upside that we saw initially. You were still on Windows. Well, Windows 7's not that bad though. Like if you were on Windows 2000, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Or was it 7? What was before 7? Was it 2000 or was it? No, I think it was 2000. But wait, so then did you get on 11? Are you on 11? Because I've been putting off the 11. Yeah. So you know what it really is all about is that so I have all of these windows down here at the bottom, right? Every window that I have, I want to have a button to be able to click on it and go straight to it. And because of the stupid Mac people, listen, the problem with Windows the problem with Apple iOS from a productivity standpoint is that Apple is a fashion company, not a computer company. Okay, so like they're like, oh yes, let's put, we'll only have one icon for each application down in the bottom, and then you have to click on that, and then you can see all of the different windows or whatever. And then some people said, oh my gosh, that's so clean and a cool aesthetic looking, I should use. No, I don't want that in my Windows. So on Windows 11, they put in all of this bullcrap to be trendy or whatever, and to deal, to make it more like touch screens and stuff, all at the expense of productivity. And in particular, if you want to have your windows like I have at the bottom, where each window has its own thing in the task manager, like you can't do it from the default settings. Apparently they may have changed that since release, but when it was released, you couldn't do that without a hack. Like you had to do a registry hack for it. And I said, nope, not switching. And I don't think that there's been Windows 11 Service Pack 1 yet, has there? Let's see, Windows 11 Service Pack 1. You would think that it should have happened by now, because it's been out for more than a year, hasn't it? No. They are changing a lot of things in their updates, though. Oh, look at your DMs. Did you say more after I... No, I don't see anything other than you saying that it was a pain to get into the NinjaTrader client portal and download NinjaTrader. You still love your Unix terminal? Okay, so you want to see something? You want to go into something deep? Let me see if I find it here for you. I've been doing like a bunch of research on this. Okay, so check again. Oh, okay, he's showing me a screen of it. I'll show you guys. Make sure there's nothing. Oh, I see. You got me up here, and then you got... See, I would just minimize me, because you just need to hear me. You don't need to see me, right? And then make Twitter the full screen. That's what I would do. No, okay, so... I think that the Unix shell is outdated, to be honest with you. Like, I think that it's pretty good, but there are like new paradigms. So PowerShell had some really great ideas. The problem with PowerShell is that it's too difficult to remember all of the names of the commands and the syntax and stuff. It's too verbose. It's too verbose. But it's old. Okay. The typical Linux shell, it is old, right? So something that's been happening is Rust. Rust has been for many years now the most admired language. It's the language that like people wish they could get into, but like there's not enough jobs for it yet. But for a lot of like deep systems programming kind of stuff, the things that you would do with C++ and C, you know, Rust is kind of taking over that domain, and there's a lot of new concepts and so forth in it that makes it better to develop with, particularly for security concerns. So in C++, there's all sorts of naughty things that you can do that can leave vulnerabilities in your applications, and Rust completely prevents those and completely prevents you from being able to create memory leaks and things like that. So that's why Rust is kind of taking off. And so what's happening in the Rust community is all of these people are coming back and saying, well, let's take this common Linux utility. So for instance, they just barely got Rust in the Linux kernel. Like there are parts of the Linux kernel now written in Rust, right? Now they're starting to look at all of the utilities and all of the little parts of the Linux operating system. And people are saying, well, it would be fun to rewrite this thing in Rust, right? And when they do that, it's better. What they make ends up being better. So I've just been going through like different components. So I did it for my text editor. And there's a text editor that's better than Vim. It has some of the same concepts, but better than Vim. But it can go into that another day. I can't remember the name of it at the top of my head, but for the shell, the one that it seems to be the best that I've been able to find, at least, is New Shell. So New Shell is written in Rust, and it is a Linux shell, but there's some little things about it that are a little bit better. For instance, New Shell works with data. So like any command that you run, for instance, they're doing ls to show what's in a folder, right? It comes out with, you know, different columns. For instance, this is all data that you can modify. So if I was going to do this with your typical shell script, I would have to parse text, right? This is already as data. And so I can manipulate and filter this very easily, right? See, you can immediately run a where filter on it to say only show me the files that are larger than 10 megabytes and sort by the last time that they were modified. Boom. Easy peasy, right? And you can even get it to output like JSON. So you can manipulate things with JSON very easily. And then people are even starting to like rewrite individual utilities and things like that. So it's yeah. So if you're a computer person, think about whatever is the tool that you use a lot during your day, and then say, is there a free Rust equivalent? And go and look at it. And I bet you it'll be better than the one that you're using right now. You've never been able to do that? Why? So how large of a screen were you working with before? I can only imagine. Watching, looking at Twitter here, seeing what people are coming through. Not too much people talking about like the markets actually this morning. $19.5. Well, that's not. That's. I would have a hard time using a 19.5 inch monitor. I would need to be like. I would want to be like my face like right in it. I've been working on my desk, and I really want to get this desk done. So every day I think about it, I'm like, well, that would be less of a problem if I had my new desk. You've had that monitor for 12 years. Wow. Yeah, I kind of wonder at what point I need to. I may, this middle one, I may need to upgrade this one because I think it's about 10 years old now, and I think there's sometimes I can see a little bit of burn-in at the top. Well, not burn-in, but there's like these little weird pixel. I don't know. It's just like the pixels are slightly lighter up here at the top or something. So I think the monitor is starting to go. 27 inch. I have 3 27-inch monitors. I don't think I could. So my whole thing, this is where I'm saying it's going to be interesting when I get the new desk, because when I get the new desk, one of the things is that the new desk is wider. So right now I try and get as close to the table as I can, because I don't know, that's just like what makes me feel the most comfortable. I should probably be a little bit further back than that, right? And so this bigger desk will force me to sit back a little bit. That's going to change the camera a little bit as well, right? So the perspective on the camera might change. I don't know what it'll, if it'll be far enough away that I can move to 35 millimeter from 24 or what. But so I'm kind of curious about that. And the other thing is that I have this camera set to be like eye level. It's supposed to be eye level. I slouch a little bit, so it's a little bit less than eye level. But to do that, this monitor has to be down because my other monitor is up here. My other 2 monitors are up here. So there's been these really nice monitors released by like Samsung and others that are like the equivalent of 2 monitors combined together. But now they're starting to make ones that are combined 3 monitors together, and it's just this big, huge curved space, right? Which I have some concerns about because I need to be able to see where the monitors are separated, and I want to be able to like align things up to the grid, but there's utilities for that and stuff, right? But if I went to one of those monitors, I'd have to move the camera up, right? It would be nice though, because for instance, I switch things, but I have my DJ controller over here, and I can't. I mean, I can touch it, but I have to like slip my hand underneath of the monitor. So if I was able to get the monitor higher, That would be better. But if I have the larger desk, then this will just be in front of the monitor and won't be covered up by the monitor anyways, right? And then I'll have all of this other room to put other things like my clipboard and stuff like that. Yeah, they call them the Odyssey series of monitors. But when I upgrade this main one, I will probably go to a higher refresh, like a 240 hertz at least refresh rate monitor. 144 is sufficient and competitive, but there are a slight advantage to 240 apparently. Not that I play any games anymore. Yesterday I was playing, I got an advertisement on TikTok that Final Fantasy has been like remastered for the Nintendo Wii, like the original Final Fantasy. And I played that as a little kid. I'm not like super into to JRPGs. I think they're boring for the most part, but I still enjoy Final Fantasy for some reason. And it's like the perfect game for me right now because like I can just set the commands and then walk away for a second and do whatever the deal is. Does Ninja have OpenGL support? I don't think so. I think that it uses Direct 3D. So if I can show you here. So here's the Ninja Trader help guide. I wish people spent more time in the help guide, especially when you're programming. You gotta be able to look up this language reference. Anyways, SharpDX is the name of the library that they do use for all of their drawings. So if you want to do your own drawing and you're doing especially if you're doing something that draws a lot of stuff, you should be using the SharpDX. And it's not that complicated actually. But you use SharpDX to do your indicator and it will be faster and, you know, it'll be as fast as the built-in stuff, essentially. But you can see here they do direct 2D1 and there's not direct 3D, but it's DX. So it's a DirectX library. Yeah. So if you get into Rust, then you want to do GUI elements in Rust, there's like so many options and none of them have really like found primacy yet. So that's like just a big, huge mess trying to decide which one to do. I suspect that at some point, you know, video games will be made in Rust, but I think for the most part, the libraries aren't there. Yeah, well, if you were on a 19.5-inch monitor, man, good grief. And especially moving to 4 of them, wow. You gotta be careful because that'll just suck you in, right? Like your desire to be in front of the computers will be so much higher, right? Oh, man. Anyways, I've been working on the desk and I tell you what, it takes way too fucking long. Okay, like if I took up all of the hours and I build the hours at like what my normal rate programming would be, it would be some like tens of thousands of dollars, because it basically ends up being like I'll go and work on it on the weekend and I'll spend like 12 hours or whatever, and it's a piece of wood with legs, that tens of thousands of dollars in hours. Like this weekend, what did we do? We got like 2x4 pieces of metal, of steel, and we were bevel cutting them and then welding them into a square leg. That's what we did. And like the methods that we had to cut it weren't working very well. Like we have this one machine that's like kind of like a bandsaw, and you just it like folds over like this, and then the weight of it is what cuts, you know, the weight of it pushes the band into the metal, and that's what cuts it. But when you use that one, it like the measure, like the angle, like slowly goes off. So then he's got like this chop saw for metal, which we got this grinding saw plate, saw blade or whatever. Cuts through it pretty good, but like it gets the metal really hot and bends it, and so like the cut is not clean. It's not like perfectly flat and at the 45-degree angle and everything. So like afterwards we have to like grind it and do all this stuff, and then we got a metal table where we're like clamping everything to the table and clamping them down so that things are like the exact size, and then welding it together, right? And that took like all day yesterday or Saturday. Like I started at 2 and like got back at like 9. So like 10 hours. 10 hours for a table. And it's like every time I think, oh, we'll be done. Like after this, we'll be done and I can have the desk. No. So next week I'll have to fill in the welds and clean them up. Mount them to these plates. Possibly be able to screw them into the table. And then we're gonna have to worry about painting them. You're gonna have to paint them. So it might be another week to paint them. It's fair to say I went overkill for just trading. Yeah. I think you'll start to find other uses for it, probably. It's hard to have a computer like that and power like that and then not find other uses for it, right? Nick Timmeros tweets an academic paper saying social media fueled a bank run on Silicon Valley Bank. We employ comprehensive Twitter data to show tweets in the run period with negative sentiment translate into immediate stock market losses. Yeah, now 64 gigs of RAM is maybe overkill. Unless you're going to do a back test, you're going to have a hard time using all that. When you start doing data stuff, then that starts to become useful. Yeah, you just got a workstation card. Dude, some of these GPUs, so trying to go into a server rack mount case, it is hard to some of those cards, like the 40 series cards. I think I'm okay because I got like 3060, but some of those 40 series cards just straight up won't fit in your standard server case. Like even a 4U, which is a really big server case, they don't fit. They're too tall. And the workstation GPUs are, but you know what, the workstation GPUs are not necessarily weaker. Oh, so that's another thing. So you got 4K monitors. That also makes a big difference, right? Although for your standard 27-inch monitor, I mean, 4K is objectively better, but it's not that much better if it's a 27-inch monitor. If it's a bigger monitor, then you'd really want 4K. But yeah, I tell you what, the server cases are too freaking expensive. Like I'm just kind of been like putting off getting one. I do want to get one to put, if I get everything in the rack and I have all of the cables coming out of the rack and then all of that going up into the computer with a cable management tray, then my room will be a lot more resilient to my sons. But yeah, your old PC couldn't handle it. Well, it's a Quattro, right? Like the thing I don't think people realize is that those Quattro cards are not necessarily weaker. In fact, in many instances, the Quattro cards are more powerful than the regular graphics cards. It's just they're geared towards a different use. They're more geared towards like doing 3D modeling and productivity, applications. They broke a new high, but not too much excitement from the treasuries about it. I'm a little unsure what to think about this market. This is, I ain't gonna lie, bro. I feel like I was hurled into the future. This is what I've been missing. Oh man, wait until you. So when I upgraded my graphics card, going into Minecraft and doing Minecraft RTX, holy crap. The difference that stuff makes in the game is insane. Have you guys seen this video that's been floating around of an upcoming game that has hyper realistic graphics? Like they're using the most recent version of Unreal Engine 5 or whatever it is, and all of the assets are really, really well done assets for like a kind of like a decrepit building, you know, like it's just concrete shell of a building left behind. Is it unrecord? I can't remember. That, yeah, it looks like he could get, yes, that's right. Yes, unrecord. It does look like you'd get PTSD from playing it. You could. I don't think you, I think PTSD kind of requires an emotional response, but so one of those things that just keeps popping up into my mind again. I think this is like an ADHD thing, is your brain is a neural network, and the information that you put into it is what's going to train your neural network. And people think that if you watch violent stuff, is it going to train you to be violent? No. The things that you should be more concerned about how you're training your neural network are information and emotions. What kind of information and emotions is the media that you're watching feeding you? Like, probably the most harmful thing to your neural network is your standard 5 o'clock news. Like the national news and your local news, they totally prey on making you afraid of what's going on in your community, isolating you, etc., etc., etc. And your brain takes that, it's information, your brain takes that information into the neural network, and you're unconsciously making decisions based on that information that you're watching on the news. Same with financial news, to be frank, is so much of the financial news is sensationalism. Like earlier I was talking about the dollar. Everybody's bearish the dollar right now. Everything that you're constantly bombarded with is that the dollar is going to fail and so on and so forth. And it's not really the reality usually. Not that the dollar doesn't decline sometimes, but the last 10, 20 years, all I've heard about is that the demise of the dollar is nigh, and then the dollar just gets stronger. And meanwhile, you got all these traders. They're absorbing that information, and it's going into their trading. Subconsciously, frankly. I think there's a lot of people out there that really do not realize how much the fundamentals and what they know about the market actually is playing into their trading. I don't think that you can go and read the news and absorb all of that stuff and it not affect your trading. But if it's a game where there's like a really emotional scene and everything, and then you get like the gore and stuff, yeah, that could traumatize you. Right? What are the emotions that the media that you're watching are trying to bring in you? What kind of action? Because I tell you what, can I rant for kind of like I really rant for a second? One of the things that gets talked about a lot these days is that like there are people out there trying to undermine you, that they want you to stay poor. And I thoroughly believe that that is true. I think that there are forces out there that would prefer that you stay somewhat poor and never really gain a whole lot of power and just end up being a cash cow for them, paying your mortgage or whatever the deal is, right? If at the very least, from a religious context, that the forces of Satan don't want you to become successful. Okay, so there are forces out there that are working against you and want you to stay poor, right? And so what do you do about it? And when I go out and look around, what am I seeing? Like kids in inner cities going and starting riots and like flipping cars and stuff like that. That's anger. There's anger out there. Well, from what I've understood about emotions, emotions are created by, centers in your brain that you don't necessarily have complete control over. It's like a response to certain kind of stimulus, and those emotions happen to protect you from certain things, like fear to protect you from like killing yourself, for instance. Okay. And anger is there to ensure that you get treated fairly by other people in the society. So, if you're angry, a lot of people would say you should never be angry. Don't listen to those people. You don't necessarily have control over whether you're angry or not, and especially if you're a man. But let me just tell you what, man. Anger is a part of being a man. I don't think that people that have never had a lot of testosterone in their system understand. You get aggressive. Aggression comes. It's part of the hormone. Okay, but the question is, what do you do with it? What do you do with it? Because those forces out there that want to keep you down, they love nothing more than to see you fighting with other people, fighting amongst yourself, running around your community, destroying your own community. Does not help you, right? Anger can be a very powerful emotion, but use that anger to go out and create a successful business, to go and accomplish great things. Don't use that anger to run around and destroy things. Don't use that anger to get online and yap at people, because that's the other thing that they want, is they just want you to get online and yap. All right? Like everybody's saying, we need to do something, and they think that doing something means posting a lot on Reddit about your ideology. It doesn't do shit, right? Turn what you know, what you want, and turn it into action. Go and start successful businesses. Go and have successful communities. Build your community. Like if you're angry, you should go out and make friends and organize activities and get closer with other people so that you can actually accomplish things. So when you just go out and you're violent, right? And that's what I was saying, like your brain, it's a neural network. And what are they constantly teaching you? It's all geared to teach you to go out and destroy and to not do anything productive. Like here's one of the things is people talk about basic universal income. So it seems like for some people, their dream is that nobody will have to work if they don't want to. Oh my gosh. Sounds like a nightmare. You ever heard about that experiment where they had the mouse utopia, and the mice would basically like destroy themselves? And like some mice would become drug addicts and some mice would go around and start becoming violent and this and that, even though it's like a perfect mouse utopia. Yeah, that's what I think of when people start talking about basic universal income. I kind of feel like that if we're in a world where we're so productive that your labor, is equal to thousands of hours of labor now because of artificial intelligence and whatnot, should be to the point where you only have to work an hour or something doing something, and then you have plenty of money to live. And then what are you going to do? Sustenance farming. How about that? How about we all become farmers again? You'd probably be happier that way. If we were all farmers again. Make friends how? Well, for starters, you need to not be autistic. That not being autistic kind of helps a little bit. And if you are autistic, you probably, oh my gosh. Okay, so this is a hard one. So I've been seeing more and more stuff about the autistic community because I'm pretty sure that my son is autistic. Okay. I actually, you say that you're not, but listen, I don't think that any of us are like autistic, but I don't think that we're neurotypical. Okay. I don't think that we're neurotypical. Anyways, my son, he got hit by the autism stick hard, apparently. So I get a lot of autism stuff online. And one of the things is they're like, guys, we the autistic community, like we need to get together and we need to be building more communities and like meeting up in real life and everything. And I'm like, whoa. You get too many autistic people in one room and just watch what happens. Okay, it's not necessarily a good thing. You need a little bit of a mix. Having like a neurotypical society and then a few autistic people to come in and you know, that's like a big advantage. But like a bunch of autistic people and then only a few neurotypical, that's a bad combination. Doesn't end well. Doesn't end well. You know what? I find it hard because one of the things that happens is like you make friends going about doing things, you know? Like it typically would be you go to the store, you see people that you know at the store. You go to the park, you see people that you know at the park. And you're constantly going to those places, right? Nowadays, you don't do that. And you're so busy that you don't really even have that recreation time where you would be talking to people. And then when you do have that free time, you stay in. I mean, if you have a family, I mean, I have spent enough time with the family that kind of takes up a large portion of it. But that's the thing is I think you have to have things that get you out. So the thing that I had that gets me out is weightlifting. But I haven't been able to go down there for a long time because, you know, it used to go after work, but I don't work downtown anymore. And I can't leave my wife alone with 2 infants. That's just torture. So I've been cut off from the community a little bit. Actually says, I am neurotypical. Remember the IQ test I was asked to consult a psych and most clinically normal man I've really, I don't know. Because you constantly say things that kind of suggest you feel socially awkward and stuff. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just you need the practice. That's one of the things is that like, if you're a kid and you don't pay attention when you're in school, you don't, you know, have a strong social group at school and you just play video games at home, then you might as well be autistic, right? Because you're not getting the experience that trains your neural network to be social, right? And then when you're older and you get to that point, it's difficult. So for me, because I think that was very much me, because ADHD, you just don't catch what people are doing. And the way that I dealt with that was going to raves, actually. Not that I didn't do drugs or anything like that, but just if you go to clubs, there's people to talk to and lots of opportunities to practice that stuff. I don't feel socially awkward. I feel stupid when I'm in the company of more than 5. Well, I don't know. You don't seem too stupid to me, but the bigger problem is that I'm not convinced that IQ tests are actually a very good test of intelligence, to be honest with you. I think that it becomes used a lot because people's performance on an IQ test tends to be consistent. That is, if you take the average person and you give them an IQ test, and then you give them an IQ test the next year, if they're an adult, their performance tends to be consistent, right? You can practice and get better in an IQ test. You can. But a normal person isn't doing that, right? But in terms of like trying to compare the intelligence of different people in the way that they do, I'm not sure that that's actually a valid use of IQ tests. And I think that they're making some statistical errors, especially when people try and do things like compare the performance of IQ between different social groups, races, ethnicities, etc. Like I don't think that the statistics work in a way that any of that information is useful to you at all. One thing I really like, so what kind of a chair do you have? You have a chair that you can recline with? Yeah, it is getting time for me to get a new chair. That's another thing is you know, I want to build a new machine this year. I want to build my rack this year. I want to finish this desk, but I want a new chair. And I have some content on TikTok that kind of suggests to me that the channel could do well with chairs. That talking about chairs would be something that the channel would excel in, because a trader puts your chair through the most, right? Because you're talking about being in front of a computer for hours, and you need to stay engaged and alert, you know? As about how to make friends, not whether IQ is, well, okay. So the point of that was, if you feel stupid and when you're around more than 5 people, that sounds like probably more of a reflection of your own internal feelings about yourself than your actual ability. Because I tell you what, a lot of really dumb people are really good with people. Right? It's a Serta chair. I'd have to go. I have a bunch of chair research that I've been doing. This chair that I use came from IKEA. And to buy it brand new from IKEA, I think it was a $700 chair, which is probably too much to spend on a chair, but these days you can probably get a better chair for that much. But it's leather and the stitching on it's kind of coming apart. So I think it's time for a new chair. Well, the treasuries are doing the ascending triangle higher sort of a thing. I don't like patterns, but I can't help but notice that in treasuries, when that pattern happens, it tends to result in a breakout. Might break out and then come back, but probably there's a good chance there'd be some stop run higher at some point. That's how that tends to go. I don't know. For you, actually, you're going to school, so you should be able to develop a community with school. Man, when I was in computer science, there was a couple of years there where I just lived in the lab. There was some weeks where it was literally you were just in the lab working the whole time, and then when you were done, you would consult with other people, see what they did, and help them. There's no way you get through it otherwise. For me, there's no way I get through it otherwise. It's so much work, so hard to focus and do all of that work. It's kind of weird thinking back on it now. Actually, really any time where I have been like go time, like I do that. I guess that's just my personality. Is I will get myself worked up into I've got to do this thing, and I've got to sacrifice whatever it is to get that particular piece of work done. So whether it was like making videos many times, or the stuff that I had to do to be able to make a video and crunch and do it. But I did it, right? I've never had to do anything too crazy to make videos, like stay up late and stuff. But I remember one thing that I did was when I got my first piece of DJ equipment. I waited and waited and waited for it to go on sale, and there was a sale, and my wife had the car and was doing something. So I had to walk. I had to take the bus and walk, and it took me like 3 or 4 hours to do this, to go and get it and bring it back, but I did it. That's the one that I can remember where that was like the grind or whatever. see, when you're in school, you have people that are dealing with the same thing that you are. So you have like that kind of shared basis with which to work with people and be social, right? Yeah, well, it's kind of hard when the whole school hours are with math guys and the one's closest in age is 8 years younger. You work it out. You know, I think one of the problems that we have in our society is that we section off by age and gender too much. Like, something that I see happen in online games. When I first started gaming, so like early 2000, and I was doing online, most of the people that I was playing with were like 30 years old. And I wouldn't call it gatekeeping. I think that some people would call it gatekeeping now, but like if you were new, you were and you did something wrong, it was pointed out. Let's put it that way. If you were new and you were doing something wrong, it was pointed out. You know, like they pummeled you into submission and got you in line quick. And nowadays when you go online, it's all kids, man. It's all 14 and like young kids. Like you go and play Fortnite, you're playing with like 10-year-old kids, which is so messed up. 10-year-old kids should not be allowed to play online. Do not. If you have kids, I would highly recommend to you to severely limit your children's online activity until they are 16. And this is coming from somebody that has been more involved in the internet than probably almost any other person you've met. Okay. So it's not good for you if you're on younger than 16. But like online, you can't tell who is what age anymore, and it's like largely kids, and it's like resulted in a toxic internet culture, in my opinion. I think a lot of the problems that we have on the internet today come down to it's mostly kids. Like when you get on Reddit, oh my gosh, so TikTok is a better example. We should talk about it because this is a market thing, and I think I'm going to talk about it more. Because my conclusion from the market research that we have and everything is that stock buybacks are bad for society. That's my conclusion. The incentive, the what you can get out of buying your own stock is just too strong. You will do that over everything else. And so companies don't invest back in their employees and into growth and all of these other things that we would like them to invest in. They invest in stock buybacks instead, is what I see happening. Because the impact of new orders is so strong that it overwhelms any other kind of incentive. So I think that stock buybacks are bad. So this libertarian person on TikTok who has what's his name? Praxben, I think is his name. He actually has really, really good content. And I think these libertarian types have really good stuff online because they'll go into studies and they'll talk about, you know, why free markets are good and really tear down a lot of the really stupid, frankly, stupid arguments that are going on out there, especially on Reddit and TikTok about capitalism and stuff. Right. So I pointed out he's wrong because what he said was, well, stock buybacks being, you know, harmful, it doesn't make sense because if you go and buy back your stock, you're going to take all of those stock off. So there's less stock out in the market. But does that change the value of the company? That doesn't make any sense. And the response is, well, that doesn't make any sense because you're assuming that the market is efficient. The reality is that market prices react to things other than the fundamentals of the company. And one of those things that they react most strongly to is people buying and selling in the open market. So if you go out and you buy your own stock, it does increase the market cap of your company. It actually increases the market cap of your company substantially. And that was the point that I made. And then some guy starts getting super aggressive, calling me a communist and stuff. It was like, just because I think that stock buybacks are harmful does not mean that I'm a communist. And then they start going on all of this stuff about like workers and things like that, because I said we want companies to invest in workers. We do, don't we? Wouldn't that be the best outcome, is that more wealth and more investment is put into people and workers? And if we are doing something where that money is just going into a black hole that doesn't actually benefit anybody and doesn't actually create any investment, aka stock buybacks, then it makes sense to me to get rid of them. And hey, we didn't have them for a long time, so I think you'd have to phase them out. Don't get me wrong, you'd have to phase, because if you just all of a sudden on this date no more stock buybacks, that would really hurt the market. Okay, you'd have to phase it out. But they're treating me like a communist, and my only conclusion, my only theory about why is this person reacting this way, is this is somebody that's been consuming this creator's content. They want to try and say the same things as like this creator, but they're like 12, right? And they're not smart enough to understand what they're even arguing against, right? Like they're making all of these assumptions about who they're arguing against. They don't even watch my content. He is correct in the financial orthodoxy way. That's the standard Modigliani model. Academia is to be blamed. Yeah. Because again, there's a whole school of economic thought out there that is essentially based on the premise that the market is efficient, that market prices are an accurate reflection of all available information, and they're not. It's a useful assumption when you're investigating with the markets to make, right? Like, because you need to have a baseline, right? And figuring out all of the complexities and nuances of how the market is efficient and not efficient, it's like impossible. And then you can't do any kind of research, right? So like it's a reasonable assumption to make that helps in your research, but it is not the reality, right? And this is an instance where that reality matters, is that buying back your stock does influence the market cap of a company. And the data that we have suggests that it's one of the strongest forces in the markets, and that stock prices would be like double digit percentages lower if it was not for stock buybacks. And then what happens? People see prices and more people allocate money to that stuff when it really had nothing, thinking that it's a signal about something about the market and the healthiness of those companies when it's not. Like, you can't tell me that Apple is the company that's like progressing society the most right now. They don't do shit anymore. Technical term there. They're not innovating. I don't understand how anybody stands using those Apple phones. How many of it? Can I do a poll? I wonder what my viewership is on this. Engage with your audience. Start a poll. What kind of phone do you have? The phone do you have? Apple, Android. And if you don't have an Apple or an Android phone, here, I'll add another one. Flip phone. You have a phone that's not smart. You have an iPhone 7. I would think that my community would be more likely to be Android, but I don't know for sure. We'll see here. Okay, there we go. Oh, you guys are voting on this poll fast. The Apple may still win because the Apple is more popular overall, right? But my wife has an iPhone, and I've been doing Android stuff from the beginning. And like, especially if I'm like trying to write something, like I will frequently write full posts on Reddit on my phone. And I don't see how people do it on the iPhone. I think that the editing tools on the iPhone are just terrible. The multi-application kind of tools, especially like not having a back button, I think is a really is like a really big deficiency in my opinion. The only reason I have an iPhone is the your Android showed ads on the lock screen. What kind of Android did you have? Oh, yeah, I would feel the same way. When applications start sending me spam notifications, that's okay. Bye-bye, app. Not using you anymore. Nobody has said they have a flip phone yet, though. I feel like there should be a resurgence in, you know, like what was it called, the Motorola Razr? Yeah. That was a cool phone, man. That was like the last cool flip phone before things went into smartphone territory. And it was a cool looking phone, man. Didn't they try? I think they did. I think you can still get them. But the thing I find interesting is that design didn't stick around. It still looks futuristic to me. I feel like when I see Apple devices, outside of their phones and their tablets, but like other Apple devices, they look so dated to me now. No matter how hard they try with flip phone, no one wants them. Yeah, well, everybody wants a smartphone. Everybody wants a smartphone. I really don't think that you should give your kids smartphones. I think that by the time I married, the stepkids were already full on the devices. Right? They weren't necessarily on the internet, but they were watching YouTube. They all had a tablet already before I was even in the picture. But with my two younger ones, they're not going to have their own devices like that. They're not. They want to use a device, I'll use my device. And I'm going to be, one of the things that I want to do with this tower is I want to make a PF Sense box, and I want to have a very, very good idea of what everybody's looking at. Yes, I'm going to become the surveillance state, because I think that your brain is a neural network and the information that you're feeding into it matters very much. And it therefore behooves me to know what content my children are consuming. I would buy a flip phone if it was the size of the Nokia 1100 flipped open. Such a struggle with my 12-year-old son, all his friends. Yeah, totally. Also, I'm saying, like, you give them a flip phone, they can call people. I don't think you should give them text either, by the way. I think that allowing, because again, it's like the dopamine is basically the signal that is sent to the individual nerve cells to moderate the weightings. So like when you have a neural network, you set up all of these neurons, and I mean the computer does this for you, but it sets up these nodes, and then you go and you train the network, and the network will say, oh, okay, this cell, it needs to have this weighting, and this has to have this weighting, right? That's what you're passing into it. And the way that your brain does that, the thing that your brain does that says this brain pathway should be stronger or should calculate in this way, it's dopamine. Right? So the things that generate the excessive dopamine, those are the things that you got to watch out for. Like, what kind of information are they getting? Right? And the strongest source of dopamine that you're going to find out there is from interaction with their peers. So interacting with your peers in real life in a supervised, like over at somebody else's house, that's very different from just texting, right? And when I started to see what my kids were what kids are texting with each other, it was like, oh, this is not good for you. This is not good for you at all. And we're talking about social contagions, because I mean there's one issue that I don't really want to get into today that people would say is a social contagion. I think there are many I think there are many social contagions going on out there among teenagers right now, and text messaging is one of the largest propagators of it. And parents do not understand. See, I think that that dude was justified in, oh yeah. I mean, just because you have your own surveillance state does not make you communist, because there are plenty of surveillance capitalists out there too, right? No sense in turning happy kids into angry, miserable adults before they hit their teens. Right. No, so it's kind of hard for me because, I'm using a lot of filler words right now, so you can tell that it kind of makes me uncomfortable to talk about, right? Because you got to be careful about what you say on these sorts of things. I'm chronically online. Okay, like if when I was a kid in junior high, I was not allowed to be on the computer except for the weekends, and I used every waking moment that I could to do it. Right, playing StarCraft and stuff. Those were the things that I played back then. And then ever since then, I've been online. And then by that, there was a short transition period. Like I want you go and you're a missionary here in Utah. You go be a missionary for 2 years, and then you're 21. You come back, and there was like a 1 or 2 year period there. But then it was smartphones, and then you were always connected. And I do computer stuff for a living, so I am on all day, and I read a lot of stuff. So it's kind of hard when you do know a lot of stuff, but you're trying to not be egotistical about it, Like if you come out and you say, I am an extremely informed person, most people will be like, well, you must be full of shit. You must not actually. Just because you watch Fox News all the time doesn't mean that you're highly informed. No, listen, you're talking to a guy that spends all of his time reading every kind of source, liberal, conservative, for my opinion, against my opinion, about politics, finance, whatever is going on in the world. I spend so much time doing that. And especially on following internet trends and like culture and things like that. Okay. And particularly the thing that has always interested me the most is online communities. That's why when I got into trading, it was inevitable that I would eventually end up creating a community. Like if I had not started the stream, I guarantee you I still would have started the Discord, and we would have just had a bigger community on Discord, right? Because I love that stuff, right? So I feel like now that I am 37 and having been online from the very beginning, since this stuff was available, right? Because a lot of people my age, they didn't get into the internet, they didn't get into social media until Facebook became a strong thing. So a lot of these people have only been online since 2016, essentially, right? And you're talking to somebody that's been online since like 1995. Okay. So I feel like I know how these things work and how they go. And I'm just telling you, I've seen it progress, and I've been involved in all of this stuff, and what people are doing to their kids is very harmful. That allowing kids unfettered access to the internet is very harmful. I've been online since the days of Raidin. One of the things that is kind of funny about that was that when I first got online, like an OG was like Usenet. Now, to find somebody that's been actively involved in communities since Usenet, they're very, very rare. A lot of those people tuned out. You're talking like you're a unicorn. You're describing all the people born in 1985 to 95. I wouldn't say I'm a unicorn. So I think that the percentage, I think that of people my age, probably only about 40% of them were actively online during that time. So most people did not have internet when I was in junior high. Like, you could get on the internet at school, and it was a thing to ask people if they had the internet at home, right? Okay. And then of those people, like how many were like gamers, how many were like actively doing stuff online, and then of the gamers, how many were like obsessed with internet forums? You're talking about like 1 to 5%. So yes, I think that I have more internet online community experience than like 98% of people. I do. I don't think that makes me a unicorn. Like a unicorn would be like 0.0001% or something like that. Okay, but more than most people. Yeah. Touched my first computer in 2002. So I remember browsing AOL online when that first came out in 1995 and kind of thinking like, it was like, okay, whatever. The first thing that I really remember though was reading stuff online for StarCraft when StarCraft came out in 1998. So 1998, it would be the point at where I would say that from then on I was chronically online, right? Oh, by the way, while I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I turned this on. Oh, no, I do have it on. Okay, cool. By the way, how did our poll come out? 9 votes, 56% Apple. Okay. I'll leave it up. Yep, before my Facebook, there was a MySpace. Before MySpace, there was a LiveJournal. I guess LiveJournal was kind of a little bit of a different thing, but I remember all of those. I remember when MySpace came out thinking it was kind of dumb. Like for the first week or so, I was like, why is everybody sharing their links? But then I saw people were making money off of it, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to get that. It was the same with YouTube. Oh my gosh, guys. So like the thing is that from 2003, was it 2003 to 2005 or so was when I was a missionary, and then I was not online at all. Not connected at all. And then I come back, and people are in the communities. The communities I was visiting were still there, and everybody was sharing YouTube links. I'm like, what the heck is this YouTube? Oh, it's online video, man. Online video is always stupid. It's always the most trashy stuff. Like, why are you sharing me these? But like, there were like funny videos and everything, and it was kind of weird how it crept in. Like, we all scorned it. Well, not we all. To me, it was just amazing that online video was that accessible at that point, because before it was really hard. It was like, how are they paying for this? How are they running this? Like, seriously. But I remember a lot of people kind of scorning it. The problems social media caused are very apparent back then, even as they first crawled out of the muck. Yeah, well, you know what? It is social media is the problem, right? I guess you could say that the sorts of the problems that you had on those things, but I don't think that it really hit me until 2016. 2016 was the point at which I realized most people can't handle this, right? Like, I had been online and I saw all of the mistakes that people made. I saw that it was like, if you were going to share a story, you should probably do a Google search and like do a bunch of checking and stuff before you share it on your Facebook page, because otherwise people will make fun of you. But like, what happened was enough new people got in that didn't know that, and because of that, they don't learn, because then there's nobody there to slam them for posting something false, right? And then it just perpetuates, right? 2016 was the point at which I realized, oh, like, most people can't handle this. it was leading to problems. And it is social media, and particularly the proliferation of politics and news on social media is in particular where I think it's been harmful. Yeah. People in school were having falling outs over who thought who wrote what about each other on open diary. Oh, that's funny. See, when I was in school, like as social media and like knowing the social media page of somebody else in your school, not a thing at all. Right? Like MySpace and stuff like that was stuff that only started to become a thing after I got out of high school. Like I got into Facebook at the very beginning of Facebook, when it was still, you had to be in a university to get into it. That one's actually kind of weird because it was a girl that I was really good friends with that she was using Facebook, and so it convinced me to get on it. And not that it convinced me to get it, but I had never heard of it before that. And I could think back on that and I'm like, how did she know about it? Because she was not a computer person. It's kind of weird. But that was very, very early on in Facebook. You know what, though? I think here's another thing about it, though, is that it's not just the social media. It's the commercialization of social media. Like when you have a social media network and it's purely nonprofit and it's purely people posting and interacting with each other, you don't have the same problems as you do when the corporation comes in and starts putting their finger on what goes viral and that sort of a thing, right? Once the companies get involved and start manipulating, that's when it starts to become problematic. And the place where I saw Facebook really, really go downhill was when they created the recommended feed, right? When it was, you viewed everybody's stuff, it was different than when it chose what you were shown. And they did that because nobody would pay for their services. You could go so viral just by adding lots of people, creating an event. Like for event promotion, we would just create an event and then you'd invite people and other people would invite people. And that's how you got all of your concert promotion done. And we would sell tickets just from talking to people on Facebook, right? You can't do that anymore because your reach is like capped. Facebook will only allow so many people to see it, right? That was when I found that it really started to become a problem, because then everybody gets stuck in like these bubble siloed sort of thing, right? She knew it because it was a tool to be popular. I guess. I don't know. I don't know who introduced it to her. This is kind of weird. I was AOL RPing in 1996 back when keystrokes. There you go. Yeah. So speaking of silos, here was something that I saw yesterday. was there was a post, there was a news story yesterday that basically was the Biden administration is championing transgender rights, and that they're making it like a serious political issue going into the election, was basically the news story. And you go into the comments, and all of the comments were like, oh, these Republicans, they're trying to genocide transgender people, and you know, they're all Nazis and that sort of stuff. Like, it was really like some of the most unhinged commenting on Reddit that I think I've ever seen. Because like the whole thing is like, guys, saying maybe you shouldn't do such serious medical procedures to yourself until you're over 18 and you understand what you're doing. That's not an extreme position. Actually, it's the position of most Americans, okay? That transgender women should not be competing against biological women. That is not a crazy opinion. That's 63% of Americans believe that, right? And to go in to make that an issue, that's what you're going to run the election on, That does not work in the Democrats' favor. That is a huge turnoff to moderates in particular, right? And I think that the challenge that Democrats face in this next election is that their record on the economy over the past few years has been dismal. Like usually it's like, the previous guy, he left me a real, left me, things were really bad, and then we recovered out of it. So all of those stats aren't really very fair because, like for instance with Obama. Okay, well, Obama had a lot of job growth. Well, it was because there was a recession just before he became president, and he presided over just only the recovery. So how much of it was him and how much of it was the economy is just going to bounce back, right? But with Joe Biden, it was like it didn't happen until Joe Biden was in office, and it stayed, and it's been there through pretty much his whole presidency now, right? That's going to be a huge problem for them in the election. And if they're not able to talk about those things and come up with responses to the economic issues, and instead they focus on transgender rights, which is an issue that the majority of the public disagrees with them on, it is going to be a bloodbath for the Democrats. I think that will really hurt them. Don't add the adjective I absolutely will. I'm sorry, but there's a difference between a person that was born a female and was born a man and transitioned to the female. And in this particular context, we have to differentiate between the two of them, because a transgender woman has a biological advantages that biological women don't have. And even these studies saying like that after you transition and you've been on the hormones and everything, if you grew up as a man, you still have those advantages, the bone structure, the muscle, everything. Okay. Yeah. Being on the hormones hurts your performance, but they're still going to perform better than most women. Okay, they will attach the woman abortion issue and we'll give it merit. Well, the abortion issue could help them, yes. I've always kind of thought that the abortion issue could backfire on them, but it seems like the Republicans have never been able to pull it off, and I don't know if they ever will. So like if the abortion issue came down to should there be late term abortion, most Americans do not agree with late term abortion. Most and it's like one of those things where like the majority of people will say that you shouldn't have abortions in the third trimester, and then there's another portion of people that are just absolutely horrified by it, right? So if the issue ever came into that, then that would work in the Republicans' favor, but it never turns that way, and that's certainly not the way that it happened in the last election. And you're right that abortion did end up being a significant issue last time around, right? So the Republican nominees will have to deal with that. And the way that they're going to have to do it is they're going to have to say, look, we don't think that there should be third trimester abortions. We let you have it like the first 8 to 16 weeks. But after that, it makes zero, there should never be a non-medically necessary abortion. And, we can carve out special exceptions and stuff like that. But, the right person could maybe pull it off. But no, I don't think that Gen Z will carry the Dems to victory. So, number one, that did kind of put them over the top before. Okay. But here's the issue with Gen Z. So first of all, they don't come out and they tend not to come out. And so betting everything on that is like a very high risk strategy, right? But the second thing is that Gen Z hates Biden. They hate Biden. So if Biden comes out and he says, I'm championing transgender rights, then the Gen Z people are going to say, by doing what? What did you do? You didn't do jack squat, right? They will rightly call it out as just posturing, playing to your base, but not having actually done anything, right? I don't think that one, with the way that it's positioned right now, if the Republicans pick the right person, they'd probably win very easily. If it ends up being Trump versus Biden again, that'll be tough. I don't think that Trump could beat him again. I think there are some polls that suggest that he could, but I don't know if it would actually play out that way. It would be tough, right? Not that like if you picked somebody like DeSantis or let's say that it was even somebody like really moderate, like what's that the South Carolina governor's name? What's her name? That one would be tough too, because I don't think that the base would come out for her. But let's just say that you picked a Republican that was like palpable to the middle. You know, it would be a tough battle, but I think the Republicans would win that one in the end. Oh well, yeah, the Republicans have a mechanical disadvantage. That's not going to happen again. I guarantee you that. Right. Before it was like these things shouldn't be happening and we're not going to participate in it. The Republicans are very, very good at, oh, okay, you abuse this thing, now we're going to abuse it too. Yeah, they're going to use the ballot harvesting to the max. And I think that you're going to find the Republicans are actually better at it when they organize it. Donald Trump was never quite able to get his his on the ground efforts to really work. But when the Republicans do organize that correctly, when you get somebody in there that knows how to do that correctly, their on the ground network is stronger. And here's why I would say that they will, because the majority of the base believes that that's the only reason that Donald Trump lost, right? The people that are you know, are constantly saying the election was stolen, right? Well, what do they mean? What they mean is there was ballot harvesting, right? They're going to use it 100%, because that's all those people think about. Let's see here. Let me close this poll. You know what? Treasuries have been really quiet the past week, and there's a little bit more volatility today, but I would say this is still pretty icky trading. I really would have to play this range. Are they making it harder for minorities to vote? I feel like that's overblown. Like the biggest effort that I see out there on the voting is purging voting rolls and requiring an ID to vote. Requiring an ID to vote, that one is just like, it just flabbergasts me that there's not a nationwide law requiring an ID to vote. It's just absolutely nuts. How there's all this thing that like, oh, these people, they don't have IDs, is bullshit. Who doesn't have an ID? You can't do anything in this society without an ID anymore. You can't do anything. It's really mind-boggling to me. The things that I'll do regularly, like I wanted to start a mailbox. I wanted to get a mailbox. You have to have an ID. You have to prove all this stuff about yourself, right? But I don't have to do that to vote. What? It's crazy. It's crazy. And then, yes, having people on the voting rolls that are dead or moved or whatever, like, they should fix that. We'll see, though. Will the turnout be as high as it was last time around, right? Because basically what happened was last time around, especially because of the mail-by voting and stuff like that, the turnout was a lot higher. That ended up favoring the Democrats. I kind of said, well, it probably will favor Democrats, even though a lot of people say that it won't. Well, okay. Let's see how it turns out this time. It's going to be like predicting the outcome when we get down to it is going to be hard because the turnout will be so uncertain, right? And you're going to see those sorts of things where it's going to be like, oh, well, Joe Biden should win handily because of Gen Z turnout, you know, because of Gen Z support. and then Gen Z doesn't turn out and he loses. You know, those are the sorts of things that could happen, play out. And there's a number of those things that could dramatically affect the outcome of the election. But I'm just saying from like a tactical perspective, like which issues are you focusing on and so forth. Right now, what I see Democrats doing is like they want to lose the next election, because the issues that they're choosing, the things that they're choosing on a day-by-day basis to focus on are things that do not help them, that objectively harm them. Like making an issue that 2/3 of Americans disagree with you on the primary issue of the election does not work in your favor, guys. It does not. You're going to find it really, really hard to convince people like, oh, yes, we need to have abortions, but I also don't want the Democrat Party like mutilating my children, right? Like, it's I think it's a very difficult argument to make. I don't think it will work well for them. And especially, another thing I think about this is that a lot of the discussion out there within the Democrat Party itself are based on caricatures of the Republican Party that do not reflect what the Republican Party believes at all. So that works when you're in your online bubble, but when you're on a debate stage and that's the approach that you try and take, you are going to get walked all over, right? You're not going to do very well in the debates on that issue if that's your approach. So that's something I see going on that I think is going to be a big weight on the Democrat Party. That and the economy are going to be big weights. And then you're right, we were saying earlier, the biggest benefit that the Democrats have going for them are women, Gen Z, and the issue of abortion. Is the issue of abortion enough to overcome the Democrat Party's other failings? I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But I'd tell you another thing is that people's views do change over time. There's this assumption like, oh, okay, millennials are still mostly Democrat and they haven't become more Republican as they've gotten older. Well, you know why? It's because they never grew up. They didn't have kids. That's a large portion of why that happens. But at some point you're going to sit back and you're going to say, well, Democrats have been pretty much had most of the political power my whole life. Eventually there comes a point where like the demographics shift. And if it's like a thing where like the Democrats become so dominant, then what happens is you just get a schism in the Democrat Party. And like you get the communist wing of the party and you get the moderate wing of the party. And then that division ends up becoming the same battle anyways, right? So you can't get away from it. So I would not just assume that the demographic trends that you've had on who votes for what and everything will stay the same. This is what I'm saying. You know, that is if you were going to place a bet today on the election. Actually, we should check that. It does predict it have a 2024. Well, okay, there's saying 55% chance Donald Trump wins the presidential nominee. That's interesting. But do they have one for oh, okay. Which party wins the presidency in 2024? Do they have one for which person wins the presidency in 2024? Probably not. By the way, the rumor mill is that Biden will announce his campaign for president tomorrow. Because there's been a lot of talk of he shouldn't run, and there's a lot of polls that suggest that the Democrat Party thinks that he shouldn't run. And there's even talk of like not having Democrat debates and all that sort of stuff. That could be interesting to see how. Okay, so here it is, 2024 presidential winner. That's what I would like to look at. Gavin Newsom at 6%. That's funny. It's funny though that it really does come down to it's going to be Joe Biden and then Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis, and none of the other Republican nominees are even on the board. What about yeah, if we go to GOP nominee here, Nikki Haley at 6%. I actually would rate Nikki Haley's chances a lot higher than 6%. I think at the current time, it would be really, really hard to rate her over 50%, but like maybe 20% chance, I think. I think she's actually going to be a stronger candidate than it appears. And it's going to be much to the consternation. Here's what you're going to see like 6 to 9 months from now is a lot of Republicans complaining about how much they hate Nikki Haley. That's because what is going to happen? This is actually really weird. Can I get into this? This is, I mean, we're a little ahead of ourselves here on the election, but there's something going on that's really weird in the Republican Party. Okay. So like if we were to mark these people as like how far right they are, right? Oh, here's my wife to take the baby monitor. Okay. Nikki Haley is the moderate. If not, let's say the liberal. Okay. And then we rate Donald Trump as far right, right? And then the thinking is that Ron DeSantis is like just a carbon copy of Donald Trump, but like maybe more responsible or something like that, more palatable, smarter. I don't know. Okay. I don't think that's actually the reality, because when you actually go and look at what they're doing, because there is campaign stuff going on right now. Okay. Like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump are already positioning that, already posturing to position themselves, right? Well, what you've been seeing happening is Donald Trump is actually attacking Ron DeSantis from the left. Isn't that interesting? So this is going to be weird how this plays out. This is going to be really weird how this plays out. I don't know if Donald Trump is actually going to do as well next time around as everybody thinks, but let's wait until the first debate to say anything about that, because a lot will change between now and then, right? Well, they're right in the middle of this range. The thing is, I haven't detected any kind of like liquidity hole or anything like that, but they sure have developed a pretty strict range. And I was saying it looks like an ascending triangle, but they didn't break out to the long. The S&P 500 has been going for 30 minutes. They did have about a 10-point move to the upside at the beginning, and now it's kind of moderating again. So we haven't seen too much of a change today. And let's just come in real quick, show you the calendar for the week. Okay, so for this week, news is still relatively quiet. Tomorrow, you're going to have CB consumer confidence and some HPI numbers. Wednesday, core durable goods. Thursday, advanced GDP, and Friday, core PCE price index. So core PCE price index is a number that people have been paying pretty close attention to. It hasn't really surprised us too much yet, but you never know. That's one that if it was really different, could really, really move the markets. We also got Chicago PMI on Friday. That's been a pretty decent mover recently as well. And then you get into next week, and then we get into the whole news cycle, and you get into the news heavy part of the cycle again. So we'll see. But then the big thing is that something like 40% of S&P 500 companies report earnings this week. So that you're going to be in blackout periods because of that. So that does not help the S&P 500. They can't do stock buybacks. But you're also going to see a lot of volatility in the indexes because of that. So that's probably maybe even more important than the economic numbers that we're getting this week. Right? Trump is betraying his digital influence sphere pretty quickly. You know, even though he has Trump Social and everything, and I will still visit the pro Donald Trump places. I tell you what, when it was like the Donald on Reddit, I enjoyed reading that. I do not enjoy reading the Donald Trump forums right now. That's a lot of crazy people. I forgot to turn on the fan on my my camera here. Why would you say you can see that on Twitter? So I will see his Trump social and stuff like that. And of course his most diehard fans all just love whatever it is that he posts, but I don't think he has the same. I don't see tweets, and I don't see posts anymore that are like, oh, that's so funny, or are entertaining in some way or another. It just doesn't happen anymore. Does Chinese news affect the yen? Well, everything that's going on during the Asian session could potentially affect the yen, but the yen is much more tied to things that are going on between Japan and the United States. I'd say it's maybe one flow. I'm not an expert enough on the yen to know how much of a flow it would be. The yen is so can like, what do you mean, like what? I mean, like if the Chinese, so if the Chinese central bank comes out and injects a ton of liquidity into the economy, that kind of affects every other economy, right? And that could potentially affect exchange rates. And how that would affect exchange rates, I'm not entirely sure. Like, I don't know which way you would want to trade that one, but the thing that you got to keep in mind with the yuan is that the yuan is kind of a weird thing in and of itself, right? So one of the things that I keep seeing, again, everybody's saying that de-dollarization. Okay, so where are they going to go? Well, now they're trading in the yuan. That's a real problem. Okay, except for that, how can the yuan become like the reserve currency when the yuan is pegged to the dollar? Because the yuan is pegged to the dollar, right? So like, that one's not gonna work, right? The yuan and their bonds is such a Ponzi. We don't have enough access to those markets. I don't think that to make those kinds of. Maybe if you speak Chinese and you live in China and you can see that data, then I can't say. It seems to me like there are a lot of assets out there in the market these days that are only up because of the dynamics resulting behind global money flows, and not because of the actual fundamentals underlying that particular asset. Yeah. And I see that in stocks, and I see that in Japanese bonds, and it's all over the place. When you really start to get into it, like the deeper you go, the more and more ridiculous it is, this idea that current prices are reflective of all available information. They're not at all. Not in the least bit. And if you're using the fundamentals to try and as your primary way to trade, I think you have a hard time. At least trading. It still works on a long time frame. Warren Buffett still makes money, right? But if you want to trade, fundamentals might not be the most important thing. That doesn't mean use technicals, but it means you got to look at the flows. things that are driving the money. Okay, well, we come down to the bottom end of this range quite quickly, I might add. Are they going to break out to the bottom here now? My expectation for the flows was still selling, but this is pretty tepid. I'd say it is still mostly selling to the downside, but I'm not too sure if there was actually like a lot of positioning happening during that range to create like real stops on a break lower, but we'll see. Let's recenter it. I'd say it looks just as quiet down here at 23 as it did up at 26. Now, well, so if we were to make it push lower, one of the issues that you have is that the average market maker position from the overnight session is at like 22. So if we broke, I'd be really surprised if it was just like break, and it just kept going. Like it's if it is able to go through that, is more likely to be a slow creeper. Given the time, I don't know if it makes sense to even try taking a trade on it for me. Probably just better to let it play out. Let's see here. I think I missed a few things on Twitter. Joseph Wang, a wide range of data and commentary indicate that the bank panic is over, bank lending is little impacted, and even bank profitability will be fine. This post reviews the evidence and suggests implied rate cuts based on banking weakness are unwarranted. I agree. What the data that we got last week was basically that the quote unquote banking crisis was a nothing burger. Didn't change the trajectory of the economy one bit. Right? We talked about that flow for a long time. I don't see. That's why I think that well, of course, we could still have a recession. There's still some things kind of suggesting that a recession is coming, but I don't think it's because of the big quote banking crisis. I think it's just because monetary conditions have become so tight. But yeah, I don't know if that flow is all that strong. So I think I would rather be short treasuries right now. I'm just not so sure that taking it long 3.535 is the right call. Oh look, they traded 22 half 3 contracts, so there's a breakout on the bottom. I think that I would still cite 22 as the bottom of this range because of the market maker position. So let's see if they go through that, get to that. You notice that the downtick was pretty nonchalant. Yeah. Why short? Because I believe that interest rates got lower, went to 3.5 because of the whole banking crisis sort of a thing. And that the risk is still that inflation comes back. And that the flows all appear to be short from here in the treasuries. Okay, there's 22 half. Well, that be a long-term trade? I would be I'm citing it kind of more as like my bias going in here as I'm watching the flows on a day-to-day basis, which one I would rather be taking right now. So when it was coming up here to the highs, you notice I was pretty like yawn, didn't want to talk about it. Now that it's down here, I'm more interested. I don't think that we have anything to suggest like directly that inflation is coming back, but rather that that's the risk. So when you have inflation, it tends to be a problem for a long time, and it can come in waves as well. So that's why I would say that inflation is still a risk. And the other thing that I would cite as inflation is still a risk is that that's what the Federal Reserve is saying. That's what they're all saying, is that, you know, the risks are still skewed towards higher inflation. They're staying the course because they're concerned about inflation coming back. Okay, there's an iceberg there at 22.5. So when I come down to like a key level like that and seeing iceberging, that's what I should probably expect to happen. That means that my read of the structure of the market is correct. That doesn't tell me a whole lot about what might happen next, but it means that what we've been seeing has been generally correct so far. Now, that was a pretty big shift in market buy orders. So the Fed says all sorts of things. I'm just telling you what their current read of the data is. Did I get an email from the CME too? I don't think so. I think they send them to people at different times. Yep, no, I don't see anything. Now you got me reading my email instead of reading the tape. Oh, I got a lot of notifications from YouTube. What's with that? Somebody did make a comment on there that was wrong. You're invited, Precious Metals Trading Challenge. Oh, maybe you did. Any thought on why this move to the upside are so fast? You're talking about the S&P 500? Oh, well, I got that at 8:12 on my main email. Maybe it sent it to my other email. Could be. Wow, the masterclass, how to use AI to go from 0 to 100K fast. That makes me, I do not want emails from you anymore. But I'm afraid to like tell them to put me on your do not contact list, because that might just get me more spam from other people. Okay, so we came down to 22, which was kind of the key level that I noted. There was a big iceberg there. And now it's just kind of sitting here doing nothing. I think we could get to 3550. It looks like, okay, so the liquidity is doing a little bit of a dance there at 22. You see how the latent liquidity is a little bit low there? I don't know if there's more market sell orders out there, but if there were, that could potentially be a bad thing, right? It means that they won't be able to get as many fills at 22, and they would have to either be patient and let it sit there, or they might just try and shove it again. Yeah, I'm talking about 22 in ZN. Brief, it looks like the liquidity is a little bit better now, but there was a moment there where the latent liquidity was a little low. Now you're seeing it in the 5-year there a little bit. There's no news. Why would it matter? Well, but there could still be a passive flow selling, right? For the reasons we stated earlier. That 3.5 is too low, essentially. This is one of those moves where, like, you know, if say you were long from 353, then you're probably loving this, but like trying to take it in, like every step of the way, it's like a big question as to whether or not you should take it, you know? Does seem like this flow to the downside, though, has been stronger than the stuff that was happening earlier. Well, I'm also noticing that my micros aren't following along with the full quite the way that I would expect. And nobody's really trading the micros up here either. It's like nobody wants to hit on the highs. You can see that the 5 and the 30 dipped down there, but the 10 didn't go. Dollar seems like it's on the decline again. Spoo's doing okay. Oil's looking good this morning. Natural gas is actually the biggest winner today, followed by soybeans, oil, and then RTY. Small caps today, huh? In the worst being corn and wheat. That's kind of weird to see soybeans and oil on one side and corn and wheat on the other side. Moved less on FOMC compared to last FOMC was pretty big though. It's just been this last week has just been dead. Next like the May FOMC, that is going to be really interesting to see how the market reacts to that one. As okay, this is the last rate increase and now we're going to hold rates from here. You know, that kind of makes it a key point to watch. But they're going to, of course, it's going to depend on what he says and all this other stuff. But wow, NBC Universal Chief ousted over inappropriate conduct with a CNBC anchor? Boy, boy. Her complaint came after a 9-year relationship that ended a couple of years ago? Oh, okay. This is why it's not a good idea to have relationships at work. So there's a story here on Zero Hedge. Credit started tightening 6 to 9 months ago, said the developer. A close friend, entrepreneur with large residential projects across the nation. It started with those money center banks. He continued, this pushed us to regional banks for our latest projects, but then SVB happened. The lender for our latest 30-story project in a tier 1 city backed out. So we scrambled and spoke with well over 100 banks. Not one will provide financing. His firm is a leader in the market niche, a strong track record. Fed is going to have to inject liquidity and slash rates to break this financing freeze on new construction. Not only have higher rates failed to push home prices down materially, but they are now reducing new supply. That is a problem. You want people to give 5 years worth of trading data. Do you possess such a thing? So like if you were talking about my personal track record, I'd say no. I don't think that I would put 5 years up as like here's, Seth is a profitable trader or something like that. But, what matters more is is the behavior that you're talking about in the market an actual thing? Like that's the real question here. And I'm saying to confirm that it is, you would probably need at least 5 years of data. Okay, so they did a pretty good downtick there. It looks like the 5-year is moving more. I think it's so weird that people focus on the performance of individual celebrities. Like when you go on Reddit these days, that's all anybody's talking about is how come we don't force these gurus to show their broker statements and things like that. Well, why are you focused so much on somebody else's trading whose your strategy is going to be different anyways, right? I think the important thing is somebody comes in and says, the market tends to do this. This setup tends to result in this. Well, how do you know that? What's the data that you have that you know that? And if it's less than 5 years, I would be skeptical of that information. Individuals' trading performance is kind of a different thing, right? Because there's this human element in it. Right? The human element kind of means even if some guy came to me, if somebody in chat said, hey, Seth, I am going to give you 10 years of my broker statements and you can go through them. I have the broker statements and I have the overarching stats month by month and everything so that you can go and analyze and verify that my trading is absolutely perfect or is successful or whatever, right? I still wouldn't be coming in and he says something and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, he's the profitable trader. So I guess that means that we have to do what he says. That's not what I would do. I would still be like, okay, what evidence do you have that it is that way? Yeah, what if you only trace 12 trades per year? Would that still count as valid? I guess it would depend on how long you had those trades open. I mean, if those were swing trades, then that maybe would be. I don't know. And what is the reason for their trades? Because if they say that they're trading some statistical abnormality, technical setup, and then you only have 12 trades, then yeah, you can't really get a whole lot from that, can you? I mean, I would rather see 5 years and thousands of trades, right? And when you're talking about scalping strategies and stuff, when you're really doing high frequency trading, then it's you should probably have tens of thousands of trades. They should be able to show statements. So I think that's probably unrealistic, to be honest with you. So if I were to show you my broker statements, right? I think I could probably do it here on the stream, okay, but it would be a little risk because there can be things like my full name, my address, you know, all sorts of things. I don't know, things that you might be able to find on your own if you dug hard enough anyways, but you know, there's private information that you have to redact from your broker statements. And doing that for like every day that you took a trade, because they send my statements to me daily, or maybe you could do it on a month by month basis. But I mean, that's work that you'd have to go and put out. And once you start showing statements, like you always have to show statements, right? So like, this is an interesting thing. So for Ninja Trader, they are under NAFTA regulations or something like that. NFA regulations, I think, is the ones that necessitate these sorts of things, where it's like, if you are running a fund and you come out and say, hey, look, during this period we were successful trading. Once you've done that, you always have to show your statements, and you have to update them like every 90 days or something like that, right? So once you've done that once and you put all of that effort for that once, now you need to do it forever, right? It's more work than most gurus are can really do. It's more work than most people have the free time to do. I mean, I guess if you're one of these guys that are like full time and you are claiming to be profitable, because one of the things that I see what happens a lot is they'll say, look, here's like a year's worth of my broker statements, right? And then they never show any of their statements since. They just show that one time period where they supposedly made money. And oh, by the way, like that account got blown out and they restarted since like 2 or 3 times since then. Like that, I've seen that many times, right? Is less likely. Well, I really don't think that it matters. Like that's why I'm saying that, like, okay, so this guy made money, so what? It doesn't prove that the market behavior that you're talking about is actually a thing, right? It doesn't show that you're going to be successful with that trading strategy. So like ultimately that information is not actually helpful to you. And what I have found, and the reason why I strongly discourage it, and why I've never really spent, because I could do that. I could show you the statements. I don't think that anybody would be too impressed with them, right? So that's the first thing, is I'm not making any kind of performance claims. Got to understand that, right? I'll show you stuff as in terms of like, okay, how is Seth doing? And how can we interpret that data and try and find information that might help Seth improve his trading? Like, we look at it from that. When I show you stuff, that's what I'm trying to do, right? I'm not showing you stuff to be like, make some sort of claim about how Seth trades and how well he does. That means that you should or should not follow him, right? And the reason why I try and steer people away from that is that what I found is that when you look for that proof, what it does is steers you right into the manipulators. like the person that is showing that proof is more likely to be manipulating you. Like they'll be selective about what they show you, or they're just completely making them up, or they're making money off of like front running people. That's another one that we've seen many times, right? So like if I told people, hey, look, I can show you my results, you should really, whenever you're looking at any information, you should ask for the results of the person that's giving that information to you. If I did that, I would actually be guiding more people towards scammers than not, right? So how do you avoid the scammers? I say that it should be about the market, not about any one individual's performance. The question is, can you prove that the claimed market behavior actually exists? Do you have data to show that? Well, now most people don't have that data, but that's where it kind of gets even more crazy, is like, you can't do a back test. Like, how do you know that this works if you don't have the data? Right? It just doesn't. I was just curious about the number of occurrences of informational edges on the 10-year. Well, so how I would respond to that one, NASDAQ, is that the amount of informational inefficiency in any one individual market is so abundant, it's just like mind-boggling. The real question is not like, are there informational inefficiencies? Because they're there every day and they're all over the place. The question is, which are ones that you could have found and have been in the know at the time that it was happening or before it happened, right? That's the hard part, right? WhatsApp offers the software more of a go-to for news. Well, yeah, I would hope that the thing that people say that I'm known for is that if I make a video about a subject, I am going to prove it to you. I am going to show you empirical evidence and show that the market does actually behave that way, or that this, I'm going to teach you about things that I can prove. Of course, there are things like that are opinion. For instance, if I made a video about how much money do you need to trade, right? That is kind of an opinion, I think. Okay. But if I say, there are liquidity holes, right? I don't say that unless I have something that I can back it up. And when I do those sorts of videos, I find research studies. Let me show you that stuff. I think I should, that's where I feel like my content is the best. And when I started out with those videos, I didn't feel like they did as well as they should. But that was just needing the patience. Now that we've gone down that path, those videos have done well. And even the ones that I didn't focus on a whole lot, but I have had that kind of information with them. So for instance, my video on gamma, on using spot gamma, that video is done very, very well. And in that we talk about like things about the way the market behaves that I could go and point to research or just like the rules of the market to show you how that happens, right? So lately I haven't been as focused on those sorts of things. Like then, well, but I maybe I have. Maybe it's just my tendency to want to be in that. But I keep saying like I'm going to be moving away from that and getting into more popular content, right? But really what I should do is I should really just continue to really focus on the part that I do well, mostly, and have those other things interspersed, because those other videos are probably a little bit easier to make. So for instance, the next video that I want to make, and now that Uzi has his new machine, I don't know if he's tried running my indicator, but hopefully later today he'll try running the indicator on a really, really far look back chart so that we can get more than just 1 year of data to see how this thing performs. And then we can finish that video off. And that one I think would be a really good one for people about volume profile, right? And then I was thinking about making a video about smart money concepts. There's a backtest for that one. That one could be interesting, but that's also kind of like a backtest. And then the other one that has kind of come to me today is that I should make a video about stock buybacks, showing the evidence that we have that shows how serious of a flow, how dominant stock buybacks actually are in the markets, and talking about the potential harms for it, because this is an issue that it looks like people are interested in. And I'm not seeing the thing that matters in the discussion. I don't think that people realize that stock buybacks are basically like a hack. They're basically like a hack to boost your stock prices. A hack that exploits an inefficiency in the market. And I think you could argue objectively harms some people. No, I mean, yeah, I think that you are being too short-sighted about what can be a potential inefficiency, NASDAQ. informational inefficiencies don't just come in the form of economic numbers, right? So like the one that I'm looking at is the way that the CTAs and the funds are appearing to position themselves right now. It looks like they're positioning themselves short. And I anticipate more selling. It's just that when I look at the correlations between the instruments, the flows that I expect don't quite jive up with, like, I probably won't actually happen that way. So somewhere along the way, there's going to be a surprise in here. Today, though, I don't know, like that downside, it looked pretty good. But look at how quickly they backed off and flipped back to the other side. Like they really tried to, they just played it for all it was worth and then immediately flipped it back. And in fact, it's pretty strong buying came there in the 5-year too. Almost. Well, there was the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Business Index, which was negative 23.4 versus negative 11. Maybe that's why that flipped. Did it happen at 9:30? Well, it does look like that's when it flipped in the 5-year. So I think maybe I missed one. Maybe I missed one. When are they selling? Well, listen, when I'm really confident that they're gonna buy or sell or something, then I'll take a trade about it, right? Right now, I still kind of feel like that the flows are iffy enough that it's probably not worth getting too involved in the market here, right? They kind of came right down to the spot that I was interested in, and then the news came out and they flipped, right? So, I mean, I guess he could have made $15-$20 off of that. On these ones, I mean, the market is reacting to this Dallas Fed Manufacturing Business Index, but I'm not so sure what if how important I think these regional surveys are, because they've kind of given us conflicting information recently, right? Wow, the S&P 500 is like puking hard. And that turn came at 8:30 as well. Yeah, that's not a number that usually, so I kind of ignored that when it was on the, you know, that's been happening to me a lot lately though, isn't it? I think we can get better at that as the week goes on though, because I've been, in all honesty, like really tired because, you know, I didn't have that medication and all that stuff, and that really kills my energy. I finally got it on Thursday and I feel so much better this weekend. So much more energy. I just want to go do everything. Well, since you refuse to take trades, all right. I'm just saying, you know what? There might have been a scalp in there too, yeah. When it gets like that, you know, when it's really slow, that's not good. But if there's volume coming through, you might have a scalp, right? Like right there at 28 to 28.5. That I'll just put a sim order. That one is worth trying. I'm probably a little bit late on it. Can we talk about investments? What should one invest in nowadays? Well, I tell you what, investing right now is tough, isn't it? Because if you've been in the past 2 years, like, you got hammered, right? You got hammered almost no matter what you got into, too. But I am still, so there is still this possibility, I think, that the market, that we go into a recession in the second half of the year, right? I think that's a big fear, and that's the flow that's coming in right here, right now. Yeah. And in those situations, I think that gold and silver are a good play. So if you come over here and you look at the chart, I mean, look at gold's after that number, man, just rocketing back up here. let's see if they regain 2000 again today. If they were able to regain 2000 again, that would be a tremendous achievement for them. Okay, so I really hesitate to say that on gold, because the gold, so many times where people say the gold trade is a good trade and it doesn't work out. But in that scenario, if that scenario plays out, I think one of the best ways to play it will probably be gold. And what I say about gold right now is that, number one, there is concerns about a weakening economy, so gold tends to do better in periods of fear, let's say. And it tends to do better in periods where there is central bank easing. So if we do go into a recession second half of the year, the Federal Reserve probably starts reducing interest rates, and then that would help gold. Another thing that's happening, though, is that a lot of central banks around the world are increasing their gold reserves. So I think that you have a pretty good setup for flows to come into gold. It's still a tough trade, but like on a midterm sort of a thing, I have some exposure to silver, right? So there's that one to start with, right? Now, if we also have that one, like, what do you do in the aftermath? And that's when it's really good to pick up those growth companies, right? So that would be a good time to be like, if we can get a big decline in AMD and Nvidia, and Intel is another one I'd be looking at. That's a place that I'm interested in putting some money in if we get a good pullback from. Intel kind of took off without me, unfortunately. But, you know, that's a place where you can see a lot of growth because of AI, right? But one of the things that I think is going to be one of the biggest flows, one of the biggest economic dynamics that you're going to see here in the near future is that computing power is going to become very important. Because if everybody's doing everything with this AI stuff, that requires processing cycles to do. Right now, they're giving it to you for free. Okay, by the way, that little scalp did work. I think it went off a few times, but it did give it to me. Yeah, it did one tick unfavorable, but I could just see that there was volume trading between them, so okay. And the volume is to the upside, so I want to buy. I felt. Are you serious? Is this a CTM? I don't know what you were saying. I was thinking gold when it was trading between 1800 and 1700. Yeah, you know, it was the thing that's so interesting about gold to me this year was that it was such an awful trade and it turned into such a great trade so quickly, right? That's where I kind of feel like that if this really, if the market really goes into another strong, you know, period of market panic, let's say, yeah, gold is just gonna take off, right? And like I'm seriously, I'm talking like 3,000 maybe, which is crazy, but like that's, you know, that's what I think like the best case scenario for gold is. And that's just me spitballing a number. I'm sure that we could go and do a little bit of research and come up with a better benchmark price goal, right? But so gold is one I'm watching, and processing power is one that I'm watching. I think of it more as a reserve of wealth rather than an investment vehicle. Well, so the way that I try to look at things is each asset will have certain flows, and I want to look at the different flows that are flowing into it. So the flows that come into gold are largely speculative to some extent. Even like when central banks are adding dollars to their, or adding gold to their reserves, that's kind of a speculation sort of a thing. So I don't like that as much, right? But that's how I look at it. Because otherwise you're trying to attach a fundamental property to it that it's not going to have if the flows aren't in line with that, you know? The reason that the treasuries behave the way that they do, and the reason that the treasuries become such an effective flight to safety asset, is because there are flows that literally have to happen because of the way that these businesses work. And it just so happens to be counter-cyclical, right? That's why I think you're always going to see bonds be the primary flight to safety asset. Unless like the US government stops paying its debts or something like that. Right. Well, the S&P 500 did take a bit of a doozy there. It was mostly a retracement of some of the overnight bit. It looks like it's moderating a little bit. The treasuries are still pushing the upside. Kind of looks to me like they may continue to do that. Yeah, so if you wanted to trade it, then probably yes. But over the span of 10 years, it's different. Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't think that I would want to hold gold for 10 years. Because we're in a situation where you could go in 10 years, and over 10 years, you could lose 50% and then come back up to where you were again, depending on your timing, right? Gold is one where your timing really, really matters, right? Individual companies, I wish I could get deeper into that than I have. It's just not my focus right now, and I just have such a limited attention span, you know? Because what I would want to do is like make certain kinds of models. I think that I want to make like a general model and then like an addendum to those models for individual industries, and then run all of the stocks through those models and then use that as a baseline with some AI to figure out which would be the stocks that I would want to invest in. And then adding a macroeconomic model too. Basically, like where I want to go in the next 5 years is that I want my information about possible future flows to come more from my own algorithms than from market analysts right now. Because right now I rely very heavily on those market analysts. And sometimes I'm not getting the information from them, you know? 10% of your net worth in gold? I don't know about your net worth, but... So it depends on how old you are, but when we're talking about like your overall wealth, okay, the primary thing that you should be doing is trying to max out your employer's 401k contribution, because they usually match your contribution, right? And investing in an IRA, okay? You got to do those two things first. And if you are young, then you want to put the majority of that, if not all of that, into an S&P 500 fund or a target date fund. I don't like the target date funds, but if you don't want to mess with it, then you should go with the target date fund, because those kind of switch over to bonds as you get older, right? I think that you can, that you guys could maybe manage that yourselves and decide when is an appropriate time to start moving your wealth over into bonds, right? So once you get to that point and you're already putting that money in and you're comfortable with that, the best thing is to be maxing out your IRA and your 401k contributions first. So that's like $22,000 for your 401k and $7,500 for your IRA. So that's already a lot. That's already more than most people make, right? But if you do get to that point, then you start the mad money account, where you're investing in just a regular account, but you'll have to pay taxes on that, right? But for a lot of you guys, you're going to want to mess around with stocks anyways. And so it's totally okay to start a small little portfolio, right? And in that account, that's where you can do these sorts of things where it's like, I want to pick, and I like a top-down approach. So you say, what are the sectors that I anticipate are going to do well in this current economy? And then within that space, what are the best opportunities? And you want to have like 5 different stocks in radically different industries to have like, you want some that are growth companies, and you want some that are not growth companies, and, have 5 that you manage. And that's where you do that. And for that, I would say, it's okay for one of those 5 things to be something to do with gold and silver. Okay. But that would only be 20%, but that wouldn't be like 10% of your total net worth, right? Yeah, you're not in the U.S. You're most retirement accounts, tax advantaged retirement accounts, do not give you access to gold and silver, unfortunately. So to make it 10% of your net worth would be kind of difficult for most people. Right? Wouldn't make sense for most people. I do wonder if I should talk about those sorts of things more often. And when I say talk about those things more often, I'm kind of thinking more from the perspective of like making individual videos or TikToks about those rather than talking about it here on the stream. But you know, I think that to some extent, our channel is really kind of more of a journey channel. It's like, okay, here I'm doing a thing and I recorded it and you're along for the ride and we're going to work together. So we're on the journey together and we're working together to get better. And so we're going to get better at the things that we focus and talk about, right? So we've done really great about market microstructure and all of that stuff. Is that going to make you a millionaire? Probably not, right? So it behooves us to expand out and use that information to then build advantages in other areas, like investing in individual stocks, right? So if we take that perspective, but instead of coming in and saying, okay, here are the fundamentals of the company and what should it be worth, and and you can include that in there, but we also come in and say, what are the flows that are affecting this stock and where we think the money is going to come from, right? I think that we would be able to do something unique and be able to build a unique advantage there. So I don't think as many people, at least in a retail space, are doing that, right? Well, let's see here. Another high there. It's only by a tick. So I would say that this move, we did get a pretty strong move higher. It's been, since we came up to the top, it's been a slow grind. So I'm not too sure how far they'll get. 115 even looks like a good benchmark to look for if they can get that far. What would that be on here on our volume profile chart? Oh, okay. Well, on Friday's high was 115 even. That was, what was the news on Friday again? I can't even remember now. Friday seems like so long ago. Friday seems like so long ago. This week, last week rather. What was it? Oh, it was the Flash Manufacturing and Services PMI. That's where we got hit. Yeah, that was pretty significant news, wasn't it? That kind of makes higher than 115 seem like that might be difficult to get to. But that's the direction the flow is in, and that's just the next kind of step. Yeah, I'm still thinking. You know, I haven't made a video in like 2 months, so I need to get on that a bit better, because it seems like we have a couple of good ideas and we should just get them out now. And then hopefully by the time we get those videos done, we'll have some ideas on other ones, right? So we can get the 3 videos that I have on my mind now, and then maybe we can make a video about stock analysis, right? They ticked that 30, but it's already back 2 ticks. Oh, is it time? Is it that time? I guess it's that time. Guys, interesting morning. I might go back and try and make I want to make a TikTok about, because this person was arguing with me on TikTok. That's on my mind. I want to make a video about stock buybacks. All right, well, I will catch you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.